Hey, what's going on, AP Gov fans? We have video number 3 for you, an extension of the last one. This one is on checks and balances. Very important. Guaranteed to see this on your test in some way, shape, or form. So let's dive right in. All right, checks and balances, a brief intro. So what is it? It is ensuring that too much political power is not held by one group or branch of government. Each branch has specific abilities to limit the power of other branches. So in the last video, Separation of Powers, we learned about different powers given to each branch. In this video, we're going to explore not only that, but how each branch can limit the power of other branches and really enforcing this idea of a limited government. This helps prevent usurpation. Again, that fantastic word we talked about in the last video. This is an illegitimate claim to power, taking control essentially illegally. So why was this developed? You know, who was that dude, come on, from France? 3 syllables, and his last name 3 words. Yeah, you know it, Baron de Montesquieu. And this was developed to prevent one branch of government from gaining too much power. And there is Montesquieu. That's how you remember 3 branches, Montesquieu. All right, Federalist number 51 of the Federalist Papers. We will talk about this in the next video, the Federalist Papers, but very important to know this. So what is it? Well, it is one of the articles that comprises the Federalist Papers, and the specific one was written by James Madison. Remember, the Federalist Papers were 85 essays written to try to gain support for the ratification of the Constitution, and there is James Madison, again, the shortest president in U.S. history at 5'4", and he was around 100 pounds too, so he's really tiny. All right, what is the title of the article? It is "The structure of the government must furnish the proper checks and balances between different departments." Gee, James, why don't you leave a little something for the actual article? He pretty much gives away the entire thing there. All right, so what did it advocate or favor? The division of power between different branches. I hope you guys are seeing a theme here today. Okay, let's break down Federalist 51, very important to know. So why did Madison view separation of powers as necessary? Well, let's take a look at his own words. He said, "To the preservation of liberty, it is evident that each department should have a will of its own, and consequently should be constituted that the members of each should have as little agency as possible in the appointment of the members of others." So they're talking about pretty much liberty here, preserving freedoms, liberty. It is important that each department should have a will of its own, or the ability to do its own specific things. So the judicial department, Madison believed judges should be appointed for life. We talked about this in the last video. It's a permanent tenure must soon destroy all sense of dependence on the authority conferring them. So basically, you have your job for life, so you're not dependent on other groups of people for your job. The legislative branch, Madison viewed as an important branch. Again, it is Article 1 of the Constitution. It's the first branch mentioned in the Constitution. The legislative branch would be separated as well, and dividing the legislative branch into different branches. So we see the House and the Senate. Both are part of the legislative branch, but each have specific roles and checks that they can have on different branches. The House and Senate would each have separate roles and responsibilities. So let's take a look at an example of legislative checks. Very important to know this. You can see multiple choice questions on this stuff. So a legislative check on the executive branch, well, Congress can override a presidential veto with 2/3 of both houses. So who is, a little trivia question for you, the president with the most vetoes overridden from Reconstruction right after the Civil War? Yeah, you know him, Andrew Johnson, Lincoln's vice president. All right, the Senate can also approve presidential nominations, whether it's for the cabinet or the Supreme Court, for instance. The House can impeach the president. It does not mean to remove, impeach. It simply means to bring charges against. The Senate can remove people who are impeached. So how many presidents have been impeached? Don't say Nixon. He resigned. He was not impeached. 2. Do you remember who they are? One's already up there, Andrew Johnson, and the other is William Jefferson Clinton. So both of them have been impeached. Have either of them been removed? No. All right, so legislative check on the judicial branch. The Senate can confirm or reject judicial nominees, and it is by a simple majority. So if 51% say yes, then they are approved. And the House can impeach judges, and the Senate can remove. So here is Samuel Chase, from the early 1800s. He was a Supreme Court justice that was impeached but was not removed. Do you remember him from APUS? Yeah, you do. Okay, example of executive check. So we're heading over to the president now. So the executive check on the legislative branch, well, if the president doesn't like a bill that the House passes, they can veto it, thus preventing it from becoming a law. But remember, though, Congress can be like, you know what, dude, we're going to raise you and we're going to override your veto. So who has the most vetoes in both 1 terms and 2 terms as president? He is from Buffalo, my city. This dude right here, Grover Cleveland, he is also the only president to serve 2 terms non-consecutively as well. I'm just throwing historical facts at you today. The president can propose laws and budgets. So if the president is not a fan of what Congress is doing, laws they are proposing, he or she can propose laws. And this is something we'll explore later. This is known as using the bully pulpit. So the president will often come out and say, hey, get behind my proposed law, get behind my proposed bill. Just because the president proposes it, though, Congress can do nothing with it, but this is an example of checks and balances. So how does the executive check the judicial branch? Well, the executive is the one who nominates the federal judges, both to the Supreme Court and other federal courts. But remember, it is not finalized because the Senate's got to approve it. And they also enforce judicial opinions and rulings. And we saw this in Little Rock 9 after the famous court case Brown versus the Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas. And finally, the president can also pardon individuals convicted of a crime and say, you know what, you may have had an unfair trial. Perhaps I think you're not guilty, so you are being essentially excused or pardoned from this crime. All right, jumping over to the judicial branch. What are examples of that, of those checks? Well, on the legislative branch, they can declare laws unconstitutional. Again, this is known as judicial review. It was established in 1803 under Marbury versus Madison. I got the video in the description for you. Interestingly enough, though, this was not mentioned in the Constitution. So this is an example that the Supreme Court gives itself. And John Marshall in that court case said, it is emphatically the province and duty of the judicial department to say what the law is. And boy, did the Supreme Court do that. They could declare treaties unconstitutional as well. And it is the Senate that ultimately approves treaties, even though the president often does the negotiating of treaties. And the judicial check on the executive branch, they can declare presidential actions or executive orders unconstitutional. More on those in a future video on the presidency. All right, check out my sweet, amazing, handy-dandy visual I created. Now, this is in black font in here, so it's a little hard to see, but check it out in the description below. I have this exact one and a fill-in-the-blanks one if you want. And I added here my favorite people from each branch. So, of course, we've got my boy Henry Clay on top. We got good old Abe Lincoln over here. And Salmon P. Chase, the 6th Supreme Court Chief Justice, who coincidentally was appointed by Lincoln, and he was from the great, wonderful, amazing city of Cincinnati. All right, let's jump on over to test tips for you. We will finish up with, for multiple choice, you must, no ifs, ands, or buts about it, know a bunch of examples of checks and balances. I've seen multiple choice questions about them. Federalist paper number 51, holy cow, be able to identify that bad boy. And for the free response, definitely know judicial review in the Supreme Court and how checks and balances impacts the relationship between Congress and the president. That was straight from the 2011 AP Gov exam. I got a link to it in the description. Check it out. All right, guys, look forward to seeing you right back here for video number 4. This one is on Federalist, Anti-Federalist, the Federalist Papers in the Bill of Rights. So if you were associated with the word Federalist in the late 1700s, early 1800s, you're in this video. If you guys have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. I thank you guys very much for watching, and have a good day.